Well, yes, there is certainly a place for Kriya Yoga, triangular breathing, and so forth. It stills the tumult of the mind. We're reminded of that in the first chapter of Paramahansa's autobiography. It stills the tumult of the mind. When I was in great distress, losing my third wife, and I practiced Kriya very seriously. What I understood to be Kriya from what I'd gathered from the autobiography. Basically triangular breathing with much less of the visualization things that are, I was going to say trappings that have been attached to it. Well, I would say in a very unspiritual way, you might think, that simply slowing down the breath, deeper breath, for a while until it becomes probably less deep and the breath becomes scarcely noticeable. Stilling the breath, in other words, but having the body well oxygenated, results in a peace, is a calm, which can be greatly needed when you're filled with anxiety, stress or concern. And Kriya therefore can be a great blessing to you. And I commend it to you. Briefly, it's triangular breathing. There's 3 parts to breathing. You breathe in, you hold the breath, and you breathe out. Then you go on to the next breath. And you do even count, so you might find that your breath is quite shallow. You might count to 4 as you breathe in, hold for 4, and breathe out for 4. And you breathe deeply. The bottom of the lungs right down in the stomach first. Fill the lungs up, hold, and then empty from the top, so to speak. You're visualizing it in a way. And then you go on to the next breath. You quickly find you're doing only 5 or 4 breaths per minute. And you'll level out at about 2 breaths a minute, 30 seconds of breath. And you might do a dozen of these. You might do less. You might do a lot more. You might do it several times in a day. You might do it every now and again when you need. You'll see how you go. Good idea to have some fresh air in the room, not be breathing in stale air. But don't freeze if it's a cold climate you're in. More effective if you haven't eaten for a couple of hours. But don't hesitate to do it just because you're not in ideal circumstances yet. We don't wait for the ideal necessarily. Well, that's the bare bones of it, and I guess it sounds very trivial. Well, it's an easy practice that is quite a blessing. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. But don't worship it. And the Eastern folk do easily worship things like that. Do it when you need. Do it when you find it's a blessing. Yeah. It's like eating. You really shouldn't eat when you don't need to, unless, of course, it's a social occasion, in which case you're just celebrating together. That's lovely. But don't not eat for the sake of not eating. That's not wise. Body needs food. Well, until you reach such an exalted state that you need less and less food. And that's not so far off as you might think. As you switch from being a meat eater to, you give up pork first. That's the first thing to give up. Major step forward. Give up meat next. Give up eating animals next. You might give up dairy products in large measure next. You might give up cooked food as the next. You're down to fruit. You might make sure it's organic where you can. You might find you're eating less and less. And less. And you're flying. Bless you. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. So you may find that increasingly you're living on air, or as Paramahansa understands it, cosmic energy, straight into the medulla oblongata at the back of the skull there, the hollow in the skull. You're receiving power from God. Some of these saints that haven't eaten for decades. Wow. Pleased to meet you. Yes. But coming back to it, creea, just there to bless you, not to be worshipped, just to bless you. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Oh, I don't know if it's helpful if I tell you I breathe into the count of typically 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, virtually 10 seconds. Hold for the count of 10, breathe out to the count of 10. I'm aware of the air passing in deep in the throat. I don't mean I'm making some vacuum noise. But my focus isn't necessarily, between the eyebrows or something. It's in the back of the throat. I am aware of, the air filling the bottom of the lungs, rising to the top, and then down to the bottom again, breathing out. But I was taught that way when I was about 12. Mum and I were doing yoga together. A few exercises and the breathing. I think it was called Yoga for You by Indra Devi. It was probably published in the 1950s or something. Might be 60s. No, I think 50s, yeah. No, we were practicing it in the 50s, weren't we? Yeah, late 50s. I could be doing my yoga, so to speak. Mum was cooking in the kitchen. I go into the kitchen and suddenly coming back into her company was almost an assault on my sensitivity. I was a bit concerned about this because I loved Mum. But I found her a company too violent when I came from the meditative state. Yeah. Oh, it didn't stop me loving her, of course, but Goodness, I might point out it did probably coincide with the age at which I took off at school. Suddenly became from a less than mediocre student, well, just mediocre, less than that, great trouble reading and spelling, to being an academic. Would you believe it? Yeah. And as I said elsewhere, I decided to be happy. I had decided to. It all happened in that adolescent period. I couldn't say for sure it was 12. Somewhere between 11 and perhaps 13. Yeah, that sort of period, around 12 years of age. I didn't really mean to dismiss what the mind does while you're doing because you're going to focus on the breathing. And I do at times put my mind to thinking of the chakras, going from bottom of the spine, then one up again to the stomach, and then the heart, the throat. Perhaps I get as far as point between the eyebrows, I'm not totally persuaded. Well, Hinduism's still a foreign religion to me. I've been following Paramahansa for decades, but I don't worship him. Well, that's the fact of the matter, isn't it? We're here to worship God. As I understand it, as you know, the personification of what you truly at heart value. You can love no other. And you're going to trust him to lead you through. As Jesus sees it, your Heavenly Dad. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.